Hi everyone, welcome back to Feather Stitch House. My name's Rebecca and each week on this channel I make videos about embroidery and textile art to help you get creative. We are in week 12 of our Winging It project for 2025, Pick of the Pots. This is an improvised textile art project where I take a pick out of 3 pots. One contains colours, the second contains shapes and the third contains stitches. And we use those to make an improvised piece of textile art, and it is really flexible. It's meant to be a lot of fun and it's supposed to just inspire some creativity. So I'm not going to hang around too long. I'm going to head into my studio and let's get picking. Okay, here we go with another pick of the pots. I've got my stopwatch here, so I'm going to start that and wonder what we're going to get this week. I do marvel about the fact that we have done 12 and these pots don't seem to be emptying at all. I'm sort of looking forward to a time where there's only a handful left in there. Right, silver. Oh, we're going metallic. You know what that means? That means awful metallic thread. Right, so we've got a silver. I do like metallic thread. It's just difficult, but hopefully we can learn a few tricks. So what's our shape? Oh no, our stitch is pearl stitch. Oh no, that's going to be so hard. Pearl stitch is beautiful. We're just going to have to be really careful with our thread. So yeah, pearl stitch, that's a really nice one. So this is going to be quite a textured one, I think. And what's our shape? I haven't used pearl stitch for a while. It's one of my ones that I remember and use a lot and then forget and don't use for ages. So it'd be nice to revisit that. So our shape is a hand. Okay, hand shape. Right. Okay. So we have silver, pearl stitch, and the shape of a hand. So I am going to have a think. I'll demonstrate the stitch and then we'll get creating. It's going to be an interesting one. I think I'm going to dig out my metallic threads. Right, I'll be back in a minute. Right, I'm hoping that this thread is visible enough on my linen. I've drawn a line. This is a line stitch. It makes a textured line with little knots all the way along it. So one of the tricks to this stitch is spacing, and if it helps, you can use a ruler to space out your points where you're going to put a knot. So you can mark your line if you want to. These are quite widely spaced because I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. You can space them very close together and you get a different effect. So this one is called pearl stitch. It's supposed to, I think, look like a string of pearls. So one line with little knots along it. So I'm going to start with a knot in the end of my thread. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to work right to left. If you're left-handed, you're going to need to do this in reverse. But I'm going to start by coming up just to the right of that first marker where I want my first knot. And I want to take a little bite out of the fabric. So I'm going to go in just above the line on that first marker and slide my needle under and come out just below the line on that first marker. And I'm going to pull through, but not all the way. I want to leave a little loop, a little bridge there. Then I'm going to take my thread underneath and I want to take my needle through that bridge left to right. Not all the way, I'm just going to take my needle a little way through, and then I'm going to turn my needle clockwise. So if you're left-handed, you'll be turning it anti-clockwise, and I want to turn it round until it's in line with that working thread, and then I want to turn it back so that it's now underneath the working thread. So I've rotated my needle clockwise, and then I'm going back anti-clockwise to catch that loop of working thread, and then I'm going to pull through, and when that stitch tightens, it's going to leave a little knot on the line. You might need to wiggle the thread a little bit just to help it out, and then we do the same again. So we're going to go along to our next marker point. We're going to go in just above the line and out just below the line, and pull through to make a little bridge like that. Loop the thread down and take the needle through left to right to halfway. Then we're going to turn our needle clockwise and then back anti-clockwise to catch that loop on the needle and pull through. Let it tighten up. So if you know lots of stitches, you might have come across coral stitch. This is a variation on it, so it's like a knotted coral stitch. So off we go again, down to our next marker, in just above the line, out just below the line, pull through to make a little bridge, left through that little bridge, turn the needle clockwise, scoop up the thread and turn it anti-clockwise, and then pull through like that. And we just work our way along the line like that. So take a little bite, pull through to a bridge, through the bridge, scoop the thread and pull through. And you're going to get a better finish if the little bites that you take are fairly even all the way along your line. So this one will follow curves. You could use it for lettering. You can space these little knots much closer together if you want to. You can space them further apart. Entirely up to you. So you can have a real play with this and try out different weights of thread, different spacings, and see what you come up with. It's a really nice one for lettering. You get a nice textured line, adds a little bit more interest than maybe just chain stitch or back stitch or whipped back stitch or whatever. You get this lovely extra little bit of texture. So if you've got any loose bits, you can just go back along your line and lift up those joins between the knots, and it will tighten up your stitches to improve the finish. And when you're done, you just take your thread back through Try and match up the beginning and end of your line if you can, and then you can finish your thread on the back. So if I bring it up close, that is purl stitch. So we've got little knots along the line. It's better if I angle the linen so you can see the texture. So it's a lovely textured stitch that you can use for outlining, lettering, decoration, fill. If you did lots of lines of this together and offset the knots, you'd have a lovely fill there as well. So that's purl stitch. I'm going to gather some bits and pieces and then we'll make something. I thought I'd just take you through some of the options for silver threads. There is a lot of variety out there, and this is just a few of the things that are available. So I thought I'd start with these. These aren't silver, obviously, but they are silver toned, and these are perle or pearl cottons. This is an anchor pearl cotton. This is a finca thread, and they have a lovely sheen to them. So these are all silver tones. This is a size 8 thread, so it's a bit thicker. This is a size 16 thread, so it's very fine. You could do grey tones. This one is a Sheepy's thread, Sheepy's Maxi Sweet Treat. It is shade 618, which is called silver. Right. So it's a lovely cool grey that gives the illusion of silver. So if you don't have any metallic threads, they are good options. Then you can get metallic threads on skeins. This is a bit of a mess, but this is an Anchor Lame, and it is a super fine thread. It's smooth, and you can see it's almost like hair. So it is a divisible thread. You can split it down and work strand by strand. It's a really smooth thread that gives a gorgeous sheen in your work, and you can play with the weight of thread with that. Now DMC have an alternative. I don't have silver, which is why I've got the blue out. It's called their Light Effects range. They don't hold together very well. They will just come apart. This is 6 strands, and I wonder if you can tell, if I bring it up really close, there's a bit of texture to this thread, which gives it a glittery look rather than just metallic. So it is a little bit textured. I find these quite difficult to stitch with. Lame is difficult as well, but this one does tend to shred after stitching for a while. I'll give you some tips in a second on how to avoid that. Metallic threads are notoriously difficult to stitch with. Now you can also get metallic threads. This is a crochet cotton, and you can get threads that have got glitter in them. So this is an Anchor metallic thread, 25 gram or 100 meter ball, and it is shade 304 if you're interested. It is a crochet cotton, but it does stitch quite well, particularly on felt. Felt sort of moves out of the way because you haven't got a weave to worry about, and that adds a lovely sort of glittery quality to your work. And DMC again have an alternative. Now this is their Moulin Etoile, and this is, again, it's white, but it has silver glitter through it. It's a divisible thread. So if I just pull out the end there, you can divide it up and stitch with different thicknesses. Again, I do find it quite tricky to stitch with, and the effect is quite subtle. So if you want a subtle metallic option, that one's quite a good one with flecks of glitter through it. And you can also get metallic perle. Now this is a Madeira thread. I really like Madeira threads because they don't come on skeins. They come in these spiral packs. You just cut a little V out of the bottom hook out the thread with the needle and you can just pull it from the spiral pack. You never get tangles. And this is a non-divisible thread, so it's a perle. Really lovely glittery metallic quality, and they do loads and loads of different colours in this. So this is shade 342, which is the bright silver. There are different types of silver as well. And then finally you could explore goldwork threads. So I can't remember what this thread is called, but if you do a Google of goldwork threads, these are supposed to be couched, so you sit them on the surface of your fabric and then stitch over the top of them. You aren't really supposed to pull this through your fabric, but that's a really chunky thread, almost like a string of beads. It isn't, it's like, see how close I can get it. It's like a thread that is wrapped with a metallic kind of wire, and it just gives it a really lovely effect. So if you want a chunkier silver in your work, check out goldwork threads. There's a whole range of different types of goldwork materials that come in all sorts of metallic colours, so it doesn't have to just be gold. So that's the sort of things that you can work with. Now, I have to admit, I was pretty stumped with this one. It's one of those where the combination of the shape and the stitch and the colour has not really worked for me. So I am going to keep it really simple. And I've got here some silver felt. Now, this is not great to stitch on. This is acrylic, and it's quite rigid, and it's got a glue layer where glitter has been added, and it's a lovely effect. I have stitched with it. It is possible, but it's quite tiring because it's like stitching through card. So I thought we could have a play with that, but try and avoid stitching on it as much as possible. So the glue's going to come out for this one. I have instead got a piece of black, and we're going to cut away a section to reveal the silver. I was also finding that my silver threads just weren't showing up at all, so it didn't matter whether I used the perle or actual metallic thread, it was just kind of lost. And I thought that stitching with silver on black is going to be much more exciting. We're going to get a clearer view of the stitch and a clearer view of the thread as well. So we're going to make a double layer, and I'm going to overlay my black felt. I'm going to stitch on this first. I'm going to overlay my black felt onto my silver, but I'll cut away something, so my hand shape, so that the silver felt underneath shows through, and then we'll glue them together. So this is what I did out of desperation. I've scanned my hand. So I've got a flatbed printer scanner copier. I put my hand on it, and I draped a blanket over the top to try and prevent as much light getting in as possible, because obviously I can't close the lid fully, which is why it looks so dark and contrasty. So I did that scan, and then I shrunk the image down until it fitted in my frame, and then I cut it out. So I've cut that out, and that's my template that I can use to draw around. So on the back of this, I've already done it. I want it to be a right hand, so I've flipped it over and have drawn around it in a white heat erase pen, marked in my border as usual. I'm not going to cut it out yet. I think we're going to get a better result if we stitch on a whole piece of felt. So I'm going to be brave. I'm going to stitch with metallic thread. So it doesn't matter what metallic thread you use. I'm going to use some of this perle. The trick here is to keep your lengths short. So it might seem a nuisance to have to keep rethreading your needle after like 20 centimetres of thread. I promise you, it's better than constantly untangling knots, because that's what will happen. Metallic thread is quite coarse compared to cotton threads, and as you pull it through fabric, it will just wear and start splitting apart, fraying. You'll get little fibres coming off it, and you won't get a good finish, and you'll also get lots of knots and tangles. So always a good idea to keep a ruler handy, because you'll start using more and more. I'm going to use a maximum of 25 centimetres. Wouldn't use your best embroidery scissors on it either. And another trick that you can use to keep it in good condition, I'm going to thread it through a needle. You need a chunky needle for this. So as a general rule, I don't make too much of a fuss about needles, but it kind of matters with some threads, and this is one of them. You want a needle that's roughly as thick as the thread. So I've got a size 4 embroidery needle here. You could use a crewel needle as well, which tend to be thicker in the shaft, and the needle essentially makes a hole for your thread in your fabric. So you want the needle to make enough of a hole that the thread is going to move through easily. So I'm not going to do a quilter's knot in this one, because we don't want to drag the thread against itself any more than we have to. So the final tip that you can use is to use beeswax, and you can get beeswax blocks fairly easily. Beeswax is slightly tacky, and so it will coat your thread and help it hold together a little bit better, but it also helps the thread slide through the felt or fabric. So all you do is pop your thread onto the beeswax and press with your thumb as you drag it through, and that's all you need. It will just put a little coating on your thread and make it much easier to work with. So I'm going to work just outside my outline of my hand, and we're going to do our pearl stitch. So I'm going to take my little bite. I want to keep them fairly close together. Take my little bite, go through the arch, spin my needle and hook it in. So ideally I wouldn't have chosen a knotted stitch with metallic thread, but we pick what we pick. This is not going to be especially entertaining to watch, because I'm going to outline my hand in pearl stitch. So I'll just go a little way so that you get the idea. It's not going to slide particularly easily, so you might need to help your stitches along a little bit with the tip of your needle. So we're getting our textured line there. I'm going to work all the way around, and then we'll see if that's enough or whether we need to jazzy up these spaces here. Right, I've gone all the way around with pearl stitch. I think it's created a really lovely texture. So what I want to do now is just cut away inside. So just got a pair of scissors that are sharp to the point, and I want to make sure I'm not cutting the stitches, so I'm leaving a tiny little border, just edging my way around. Go slow. Because we don't want to have done all of that stitching only to cut it and lose it. You can always take more away, but you can't put it back. So just go really, really steady. There we go. Oh, it's worked out quite nicely. Just going to take a tiny bit more of this felt away here. Fab. Right, do we need, let's test it out on the silver. Let's see if we need any more in the space around the hand. I think I'm going to leave it, you know. I was going to do some running stitch around, and maybe I'll just do the border in a different silver thread, because that has actually taken a fair amount of time to go around such a complex shape, and I don't want it to be too burdensome. I think because we've got quite a complicated stitch and a challenging thread, I think let's not bite off more than we can chew. This is a danger sometimes with making things overcomplicated, and I am terrible for this. I overcomplicate things. I want to do more and end up making it too busy, too difficult, and I stop enjoying the process. So it's been quite therapeutic so far, and I don't want to tempt fate. Just get. So let's get some of the lame, I think. We'll get a few strands of this. There's more than 6 strands in lame. How many have I got there? 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 5 strands there. I'm just going to running stitch around the border, just like I do with most of the pieces. Right, I've put my border in, and so now I've got some Prit, and just any stick glue will work. I wouldn't drag it because you'll distort your felt. I'm just dabbing around the edges. That border's helping me to see where I need to glue up to. So I'm just dabbing and twisting. Want to go slightly beyond the border. And I want to make sure I've got these bits between the fingers as well. I'm just pressing the glue really into the felt, making sure I've covered all of that space. Try not to drag, because it will distort. And I cut these pieces to the same size, so should be able to line them up, and it'll help me not distort the felt as I'm sticking it onto the background. Give that a really good press. Like that. And then I'm just going to trim it back a little bit. Right, let's pop it in the book. It's looking a bit chunky. I do have a solution in mind. So we're going to pop some glue on the back of this because it is fibre, but it is very close woven. I'm not going to get loads of sort of fibres all over the place. There we go. So let's pop that in the book. And we need a date. I believe I've just got a bit of a rough edge there. Let's tidy that up. Right, it is the 23rd of the 3rd, 25. And then we're going to put on the back our picks. So it was silver, and pearl stitch. More of an advanced stitch this week. I hope you haven't been too put off, and I hope the experience of stitching with metallic threads, if you go for that, doesn't put you off ever doing pearl stitch again, because it does create a really lovely textured line. I'm so happy with the way that's turned out, and I didn't think I was going to be. Really super simple, but we've got our pearl stitch. We've got loads of silver on there, and I think the black really helps the silver to stand out. So that's it for this week. Thanks so much for watching. Do post your versions of this week's prompts in our Facebook group. There's a link in the description below. If you're posting on Instagram, don't forget to use hashtag FSHWingingIt2025. And if you tag me at Feather Stitch House, it's more likely to find its way onto my feed. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back next week with another pick of the pots, and I will see you then. Take care and have a great week. Bye.